What's up, buddy?
Are we live?
Yeah, we're recording. Oh, yeah, by the way, ISO recording there. You see that near the center?
Yeah.
If that turns white, that means something's screwed up.
Okay.
Anyways.
Scott.
What's up, buddy?
How are you doing?
I'm sweaty.
It's a summer day. It's humid.
It's about to turn all sorts of rainy up here in Minnesota. So the pouring is now beginning on my forehead, and it might start on the roof shortly soon. You had shown me a video. Remind me again. It was
Brennan Lee Mulligan and Adam Conover.
Adam Conover.
Yeah.
It was what was the podcast?
It was Adam.
The channel.
It was Adam Conover's YouTube channel, and it was an episode about D&D and politics.
What's the channel called? That's what I can't remember.
It was just called Adam Conover, I think. It was his own channel. I think
it's got a name, and now I'm embarrassed. I'll have to look it up later.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember Adam Conover being in the name.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, Adam Conover and Brendan Lee Mulligan. So.
Yeah. Really cool episode. 90 minutes of them talking about lots of different things. I learned that Brendan Lee Mulligan's a dad. I didn't know. I'm so happy for him. Thank goodness. And he's, in Dropout, he talked live about wanting to be a dad like years ago. So.
I have very little experience with him. I've never listened to Dimension 20. I know I'm missing out on a lot.
I actually never have either. And we're the two D&D podcast guys. That's funny.
No, I listen to D&D podcast audio all the time.
Yeah.
It's part of my course of business right now.
Right.
So I don't seek it out in my idle time. I should, especially now with video stuff, learning how to get ideas, start brainstorming.
I get it.
Definitely start stealing.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a ton of Brennan Lee Mulligan and Christopher Perkins and Matt Mercer just talking about D&D outside of the game. That kind of stuff is what I gravitate to.
The kind of stuff we're doing. Right. We started transitioning to. So maybe that's it. Maybe we just started moving towards a thing that became our interest. We had set up the game and we played the game so long.
Yeah.
That we wanted to try doing something a little bit different. And this was what was at the forefront.
Right.
I don't know, when we brainstormed it, I think it was the first idea that had come up that we both had excitement for.
Right.
It's
been simmering for a while, I feel like.
Yeah.
Underneath, we were okay, we know we have these skills.
Yeah.
We want to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had proven to ourselves that we could run the podcast. We could get it out. We could finish the product.
Yeah.
And so then just continue to repeat that and do it over and over again. It's not as artistically fulfilling to me. I started to understand a lot about, I think, the performers you see on Broadway or on TV shows who have to do the same role over and over and over again, that eventually you look for something else to do.
Yeah.
And so maybe after 6-7 years of doing that same thing, we just want to change it up and try a different format. So that first episode we did, by the way, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Scott.
I'm Matías. Hello.
And we do a D&D podcast called Twin Portals. We started it in 2018, and I have been the producing director on it since the start. You've been creative director on that.
Mm-hmm.
And today our main episode is going to be about financing and how I got financing for Twin Portals. You're experiencing financing independent projects. You've got a lot of stuff that you've learned in the last year, intensely.
Yeah.
So
actively.
I think there'll be some good stuff to talk about in there. But before we started that, I wanted to kind of reflect on episode 1 because that was interesting. It was an experiment. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and this is a kind of experiment too. We're iterating and iterating.
Yes. Yeah. The way I've kind of driven Twin Portals ever since the beginning is constant small improvements.
Right.
I had the one Blue Yeti microphone, but I wanted the Acquisitions Incorporated setup, which is 3 $4,000 cameras, 5 lavalier microphones, a crew of 6 or something like that. And it's hard to go from the one Blue Yeti mic to that.
But what that does give you is a really clear vision of what you want. And that is so key in a creative project to have the specific idea that you're aiming for.
Yeah, that did help because I knew that the next step couldn't be a giant leap for the most part, but it needed to be some sort of step.
Right.
So, it's actually got a term in Japan. It's called Kaizen, which means a gradual improvement, small gradual improvements over a long period of time. It's famously the business model for Toyota.
Huh.
So everybody from the janitor to the CEO, they're constantly looking for small improvements they can make to their job, their performance, some way to slightly improve their output, every day, just a tiny little bit here and there.
I really, really like that.
Yeah. So anyways, that's how we built Twin Portals. We started with the one thing and then just kind of constantly added to it. So first recording stuff, that was interesting. That was a lot to go through.
What the viewers who saw the first episode don't know is that there was like at least 50 more minutes that you cut. Scott took
15 or 50?
50.
50. Yes, a lot. There's a lot of content.
Yeah, Scott took an axe and a chisel and a pair of tweezers to it to just remove large swaths and make it into really coherent. Watching it back myself, I was like, "Dang, we sound good!" like I was like, I was a lot more suave than I thought I was. But I think that's just because Scott did a really good job of pruning it.
Yeah, it was. I'm really grateful for the 7 years of audio editing experience before I got to this.
Right.
It was quite a lot. I'm surprised I handled the video drop so well. And I'm going to look at the ISO recording light. Immediately stare at this.
That's
thing.
our pulse check this whole episode.
Essentially. Anyway, so we got back into it. We managed to salvage, I think, a pretty decent rest of the episode. I, again, had trouble remembering what we just talked about. It was mostly our personal video game history. So it wasn't a ton of crucial stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like things that directly led up to what we were doing that day. So
right.
That was nice, at least. Yeah, and then I had a moment for the first time with editing, like I could just take this and make a joke out of it. I was watching it and I was sort of chopping up all these several starts and stops that we had, a little bit like we're doing right now, but with way fewer, I would add.
Right.
And I was taking these and just moving them around on the timeline, and I suddenly realized that I had like something representing an outtake reel here. And it occurred to me that was really the only way I could see getting out of that now. Like that was the best way to end that, or to, end the awkward intro, was to just make a joke of it. Like, here we go. And boop, that didn't work. Boop, that didn't work. Boop, that didn't work. Yeah. And if you see the whole thing, it's way more awkward, way less entertaining. It's just, what was I talking about? Nope, that's not a good way to start.
A lot of furrowed brows.
Yeah, mostly on this side. What did you think of it?
I don't know. To me, it's just really always a joy to get to try to do something new creatively. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, having like a really genuine one-on-one talk is really invigorating. And so like, as I got into it, I thought it was really fun to like figure out what feels comfortable and what doesn't. And like after the video went out, to come back to it and try to like, steer our ship towards joy and stuff that we felt good talking about, was interesting and fun. And so I don't have a thesis there, but
I think the phrase genuine conversation is interesting in front of 2 microphones and 3 cameras.
Oh, I know. But that's a theater person thing. Like, you can be genuine while you're like performing, or try to.
No, I think the act of recording yourself having an opinion changes. Kind of like, I can't remember the act of observing a phenomenon changes the phenomenon. I can't remember where that came from, but I think
it's kind of Schrodinger's thing, but yeah.
This is different than a conversation we would have, for example, at the Lock.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because we're representing ourselves differently. We're speaking for Twin Portals, and for me, it definitely changes my presentation. Like, I would not call this the authentic me. I would call this the professional me.
That's true. My posture is definitely better right now than it would be if I was just chilling at home.
Yeah, like my normal flow of conversation is not like this. Like, I'm way more chill, way more relaxed, obviously. I think most people would be. And then we had a sort of a quick discussion in the downtime between recording about possibly withholding talking, things that we would normally talk about with each other. Like, hey, did you see this thing that showed up?
Well, and this is something that you've dealt with in the past and in your other podcasts that you've worked on, is like, how do you save content for the recording versus real life? Yeah,
that was, I was wondering, and it started back then, during the podcast Shut Up, I Hate You with Sasha. We would stop telling each other things so that we could get authentic reactions on microphone.
Right.
And it's a weird rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because then you break some of the connection that makes you friends, makes you relatable, makes, you take away some of those genuine interactions to try to save them for a place where they'll be recorded and other people can observe your genuine reaction. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing's kind of a mind job,
I think it's more authentic to just talk about what hits you in the moment than to try to save something for on air, unless it's like a really specific subject that like you have to talk about in detail, like talking about like we're going to talk about financing and money this episode. So there's like certain things that we have to prep and store for that. But like just generally, when you're doing some kind of improvised content like this, you can't like stage it in advance. That's like improv 101, right? Yeah. You got to just go with the flow. Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's also the argument to be made that you can save that and keep it on camera. I can see both sides to it. It's just difficult. And I didn't enjoy that part of it, keeping things from Sasha.
Right.
It made it harder to do everything else later on. It may have made some of the recordings more interesting, but I don't think the trade-off was worth it.
Yeah.
And so that leads us to kind of our topic for today.
Yes. Today's topic is money. Money. Especially how individual artists and small companies can find money and use it to make their passions come true. Yep. Because we both have experience doing that.
A little
bit. Working on it. Work in progress.
Yeah. Do you want to start with... I'm going to start with mine since it kind of got us to this point.
Yeah, like a brief overview.
Yeah, talk about the work I've done on Twin Portals from a financing aspect. I've talked about it a few times. This is repeat information if you're a longtime listener, but I have applied for state arts grants because what we were doing publicly was considered the arts. We were doing public performances. We qualified or we were eligible for arts grants if we applied for them. Mm-hmm. I ended up taking the individual route. So Scott, got the grant, not Twin Portals. And then I applied it to everything that we did. I got my first one through the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council. That was in 2019. And that one was an artist access grant for $1,000. COVID happened, and then the State Arts Board, Minnesota State Arts Board, changed their policies. So now I was eligible for that. Their individual grants, I should say. I was eligible for their individual grants. And so those $6,000 grants then became available. I started applying for those, and I was lucky enough to get those, which then continued to progress the gear down the technological chain.
Yeah.
We kept, leveling them up. So,
yeah. So in a way, COVID kind of helped lay the path for you to apply for more arts funding because there was more of it set aside for arts.
No,
that's not the case.
No, not at all. No, not at all the case. I can get into more later, but what happened was MSAB is the agency that makes the rules for how the state divvies up the art funds. Right. They change their rules, which they do year to year, in the face of COVID, where people had to pivot to remote recordings.
Sure.
No one could get into a theater anymore. So you had to figure out how to do art, but remotely. And so they just broadly opened it up and said, all right, pitch us your ideas. Here we go. We'll do it the same way. And so that started rolling that over and over. So anyways, so that's a quick hit on my Twin Portals and grant writing stuff. Talk about yours.
Sure. So in 2024, a year and a half ago, I kind of muscled my way onto the team, a small team of people that were making a digital collectible card game. So post-COVID, there were a bunch of game development companies that downsized, especially around the winter 2023, 2024. There was this big mass let go of developers in the video game world. So like thousands of people lost their jobs. Yeah. And it's still kind of happening because of AI and everything else. But one of the casualties of that big exodus was Legends of Runeterra, which is this digital card game made by Riot Games based on the League of Legends IP. And I was a huge fan of that card game. I loved it, and I was pretty in touch with the community for that card game. So a fellow who was leading up that community was like, "Hey, I'm gonna make a spiritual successor to this game for the fans, by the fans. Let's go. Who's with me?" And I was like, "I'm with you. Here's my skills."
Where was that on?
It was on Twitter and Discord, right?
Oh, alrighty.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to help. I don't have any video game development background, but I know how to write, and I'm a project manager for my day job, so I can help with those skills. Yeah. And I sent him a bunch of examples of my work, and he was like, "Sweet, help me out." And so I ended up helping out with more and more and more, as one does when you offer a commitment to something, and keep working at it.
Yep.
And over spring 2024, I helped them put together all the materials for a crowdfunding campaign to help pay for the development of this digital card game.
Put together materials. What does that mean?
It's a lot of pieces. So
when you're putting together a thing for a Kickstarter, do you want to get into that now, or do you want to wait until?
Maybe we'll do like the deep dive.
Dig in that. Okay, yeah.
But so essentially we put together all the materials and ran this crowdfunding campaign, which was successfully funded in June 2024. And since then, for the last year, we've been developing this card game. And the path of that development has not been straight. There have been lots of, tangents and lessons learned and things that we tried that worked, that didn't work. And we're also on the path of seeking more funding and trying to bring in investors to help make the game even better.
Nice.
We're incorporated, so there's all these steps to it. And so I thought it would be valuable for folks who want to start like a small business or work with a team of people or run a crowdfunding campaign to maybe get some tips and some lessons learned on that whole process.
Yeah.
That's what I'm bringing to the table.
And so you've got small group experience and Kickstarter, private investor, alternative experience. I've got single individual public grant experience. So we've got kind of a good wash of different funding sources for projects like this. So
right.
And we're not jumping into the big money stuff. We're not talking like six figures or anything like that. We're doing small scale stuff here on the grand scope of things, from AAA games to indies.
Yeah.
We're pretty low.
Yeah.
For,
I mean, Twin Portals has never been a for-profit endeavor, I would say.
No.
Chrono, the game's called Chrono CCG, by the way. I'm still learning how to plug products and market. Chrono is someday profitable.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But
that is the goal.
It's more of a passion project.
Our thing never started like that. Ours was like, hey, can we make this D&D game into a podcast? I think we can. Let's try it. And then it got out of hand.
I mean, that's kind of how Chrono feels too. It's like we didn't come together like, okay, there's like a bunch of money to be made here. Let's make this game. It was more like we all care deeply about card games. Let's make the one that we all dream of.
Yeah, we kind of feel a duty a little bit at a certain point. Like, this is my responsibility now.
Especially once you crowdfund something, then you really feel the responsibility.
And when you ask the public for money, yes, you feel the responsibility. Yeah,
exactly.
I can share that with you.
We don't do things for profit. We do it for people.
Apparently, I do it for art.
Yeah.
So we got a few different ways that we each have grabbed some money.
Yeah, I think the idea was that we would, for anyone watching, we'd kind of like, okay, you have a dream, a project, like here are many of the different avenues that you can use to try and get there, and here's how they might like work for you, not work for you, depending on what your goal is. And generally we're assuming that this is for folks that want to make art, not like make a ton of money. It's like if you have something that you're passionate about that you want to get made, like that's the lens.
I can't tell people how to make money because
exactly.
I've never done it.
Yeah. Like neither of us are like, okay, so here's how you like, market your stuff well. Like that's not what we're here for. It's more just like, here's where there is money for artists and how you can make your way to it and then use it to make something cool. Yeah,
that's right. I know how to get you some money. What you do with the money then is kind of on you.
Right.
Like you got to have the idea, and you also have to, in my case, you have to convince others of your idea. In your case too.
Yeah.
A lot of others, turns out. So.
Yeah.
All right. So you had this list of different sort of funding sources. We got crowdfunding, subscription funding, grant funding, sales funding, corporate fundraising funding, and pay what you can funding. I added funding to all of those. I should have said crowdfunding funding.
It's a funding.
Don't like you. All right, crowdfunding. So that's Kickstarter. What else? What else is there besides Kickstarter?
Yeah, there's Kickstarter. There's Indiegogo. There's BackerKit. There's several other ones of varying scales. The general idea is that you have a prototype or a concept for a product, and you're putting it out there and saying, "Hey, everyone, I promise I'll deliver this if you give me enough money to do it.
Yep.
And here's how much money I need to make it happen." The world of crowdfunding has really taken off in the last 10 years, especially during COVID, especially in the sphere of like board games and artistry. There are a bunch of really good YouTube channels and podcasts out there related to using crowdfunding to make games. I've listened to many of them. I feel like we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that we're not going to be able to like get into in detail in this. So we'll have to just like leave a list of links with the episode maybe. So like I'll put together a list of all the things that I bring up.
Sure.
Crowdfunding is great. There are lots of challenges to being successful in crowdfunding because what you're really doing when you crowdfund a game is not just like putting a product on a shelf and saying like, here's what I want to do. It's more like, hey, world, like let's get together and build a community around this idea that I have, because you got to like sell people on the dream and turn them from just like interested people into advocates for your game, because that's how you build a crowd around something,
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest battle that we fought on Chrono. We didn't even like put a ton of time into marketing it, but we did put a lot of time into like working with our community and like engaging them and building that up.
Yeah.
So that was like the biggest brunt of my time before the Kickstarter.
As an individual, I've never looked at Kickstarter or
Yeah.
any of the other crowdfunding things just because it's always seemed like too big of an uphill climb for me and what I was doing. And
Right.
also, I had access to this other program successfully, and I didn't feel the need to go and grab more
Yeah.
at that point. So, to me, it's always intimidating. Which one do you feel is the easiest from your experience? What's the most user-friendly for someone just jumping in as
Like a platform?
the crowdfunding platforms?
Well, my experience is really just with Kickstarter. But I will say that Kickstarter has gotten a lot better, especially like in the last couple of years. They've added a couple features. Previously, you'd have to like use a third-party service like BackerKit to like collect everyone's, like add-ons and their addresses and their shipping costs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can do all that through Kickstarter. They've also added late pledges. So even after your campaign's done,
nice.
you can just leave your campaign up with late pledges on as like a storefront, essentially.
Interesting.
It's like we've had many people come to Chrono and be like, hey, I'm going to back it now, like a year later, just because they care about the project. And we don't have like, a Stripe storefront or something set up yet, so they can just do it through Kickstarter.
Yeah, so that's like pre-early access.
Yeah, I mean, so in a way, we should maybe consider taking that down and actually starting our own storefront, because then Kickstarter is not taking their cut. But it's nice to have it, and it's easy marketing. Like Kickstarter does the marketing for you. So
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah,
I bet.
yeah.
Subscriptions. I've never considered looking at subscriptions. That would be for us in Twin Portals Patreon.
Right. It would be like if we pivoted to like a more regular content release schedule and started to like turn it into, I mean, that would be like business commodifying Twin Portals,
And that is something that I've never wanted to do while we were taking state money.
Yeah.
I always felt that was awkward. It just felt icky.
Right.
I know it's the next step. I know it's basically the first step for a lot of people, like set up the Kickstarter first and then get the idea.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't, I can't see doing that. Also, I'm real lazy. Don't want to deal with that hassle too. Like maybe we'll get to it at some point when I feel like we have something that is there that this should now be paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be Twin Portals later on once it's not being funded by the state.
Yeah. I could see a world where like we found a format that was easy enough to put together for you or for whoever's editing it.
Yep.
Where we could knock out like 5 episodes worth of content,
Mm-hmm.
In the space of one sit down, and then we could still get together, like not like weekly, but like maybe every 2 weeks or monthly, and just like, put together all that recording time at once, and then spend the rest of the month editing it, posting it weekly, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I did with Sasha. We record. We had a weekly podcast, so we would meet every 2 weeks and record 2 episodes. We did one that was like a recap of the last 2 weeks, and then we did one that was a topical one. So we would do whatever was going on in the world, or sometimes we would go on explain like I'm 5 on Reddit and just tell each other ones. And some of that stuff was real fun, but it also kind of felt fillery and less personal. And we had done it for 2 years, and so.
It's really hard to get around that if you're trying to be regular about it.
Yeah, but the recording 2 episodes at once was super nice for scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just pick a couple days in a month and then you're ready to go. So next up we got grants.
Grant funding.
Yeah.
Take it away, Scott.
Grant funding. Largely, I would speak to the citizens of Minnesota for this because that's where my experience is statewide arts grants.
Right.
For me, it was the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council and the Minnesota State Arts Board. This comes from the state of Minnesota's Legacy Fund.
Bless the Legacy Amendment.
So yes, the Legacy Amendment is something special and specific to Minnesota, and that's what makes all of this grant work possible. Did you look at grants at all for your stuff for Chrono? Did you consider it?
I'm actually hoping to apply for a grant in the near future to try and hire some local artists, musicians to make music for the game.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Apparently somebody in Superior just was awarded like a $10,000 grant or something, like an arts grant.
Interesting.
To make their own physical card game, like a Magic the Gathering style paper card game.
Interesting.
With the idea being that they were hiring local artists to do the art. So I'm not sure if MSAB would bite on the same thing, but I feel like if there was some way to make music and make it public, then I can maybe still also use it in a for-profit endeavor. I'm not sure. But that's kind of the sales pitch, is that we're bringing money to local artists and then also making a Minnesota business fly.
I'm surprised
higher,
about the Wisconsin grant.
Yeah,
because
right?
I didn't realize Wisconsin had much for arts grants.
It was a Superior grant specifically. It was like a city development thing. I'm not
story
sure what
then.
the exact
It could be
path
city.
was to it.
Could be city or county at that point, or regional. So
Right.
But I haven't looked at the Wisconsin grants very much. So
Right.
I just looked at Minnesota's offerings and go, I'm staying here.
I will say for folks who want to get grant funding in Minnesota, I applied and received an ARAC grant as well when I was like 23 to go.
How long ago was that?
A few
How many
years.
years? A few years ago? 2 years?
In
year?
dog years, it was more than 20.
Okay, so it was a while ago.
Yeah.
The grant landscape has changed.
True, for sure. What I was going to say, you maybe know more than I do, was that it was a very user-friendly process, and I was able to secure some money for me and a few friends to go learn how to do fight choreography.
Oh, that's right.
Which was awesome. And I can't, like, I always recommend ARAC to anybody who has a project in mind in the Twin Ports area because, like, it's incredibly accessible. And I think it still is. I mean, I don't know if they have as much money available, but you've been on the review panels, haven't you, for ARAC?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was on the review panel a couple months ago.
Yeah. So you have more perspective on exactly how it's doing.
The grant landscape has changed.
Yes.
So from when I started back in 2019, so statewide, it's still pretty decent. The regional boards, a little fewer offerings than there used to be. So it's important to be better at your grant now than it was 5 years ago because more people want them and there's less money out there.
I've noticed that too. So I'm on a grant review panel for, they're formerly the Duluth Community Area Foundation. Now they're called Boreal something. They just rebranded their company, but they help private groups who want to offer scholarships to students essentially. So they manage many different grants to help fund kids that want to go to school for different things. There's like STEM grants and arts grants. And all
so
kinds
they're
of
the
stuff.
people who take the money and then arrange for all the applications.
Yeah. If you have like a wealthy donor who wants to like get kids money to become engineers, then they'll help that happen.
Yeah.
And set up the committees and stuff. So I will say in the last 3 years that I've done it, the amount of applicants has like doubled from the first year. So yeah.
The grant landscape has changed.
Yes.
So
yeah.
that would be my note for that section. Sales is the next one on here.
Sales
is the next thing.
Are we qualified to talk about this, Scott?
I'm not.
And I'm making a for-profit game.
So did you consider sales for Chrono, or when do you consider sales for Chrono? At what point do you say?
Yeah, we actually just talked about that like last night. Because game development is tricky and it's hard to like set a date on things. But you also need to monetize your product at some point, especially if you're going to bring outside investors to chip in money. You have to like commit to things.
Yep.
So our plan is to monetize the game essentially once it is competitive. Like there's enough bug fixing that you can play the game without feeling too frustrated.
Okay.
And then once we have our competitive formats set up, so like once you can actually like join a tournament and like play on a ladder and try to become the number one player, once those systems are in place, then we're going to add our collection features. So that's like all the cosmetics,
gotcha,
booster packs, all that kind of stuff, and that's collection and monetization have to come together. And you can't, it's tricky with the card game too, because along with most games, but card games especially, like there are cycles to it. You have to I'm probably getting in the weeds here.
I believe you might be, but keep going.
So, you can't just like release the game and then like keep it on the same patch for like 6 months to a year, No. Because people get burned out and they just like go play a different card game.
Yeah.
So you have to like keep releasing new stuff and have that cadence set up ahead of time. And so if you like release your beta with all the monetization stuff, then it's another year to your full launch, then it's like you're going to bleed players because they're going to get tired of playing the same cards for a whole year,
Yeah.
So trying to space that out is tough. Anyway, that's where card game sales.
That leads to corporate fundraising.
Yes, corporate fundraising. So,
which I also have no experience with.
Sure, I'll take this one.
I'll drink some water.
Nice. There are a lot of resources out there for game development. Also, just for like creative endeavors online. I've actually been amazed to learn so much about like all the different public grants and like publishing companies that are willing to support small producers and angel investors and like services to find angel investors. There's tons of stuff out there. And it's really all about, the best thing you can do if you want to find an investor or a publisher is talk to them in person. And I would say that our greatest success with Chrono has been the week that one of our team members went to GDC this spring and just like met a ton of people in the development industry. and then had all those face-to-face connections and was able to follow up and talk through different ideas and opportunities.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have like a big pitch deck or anything, like a booth or whatever. We just talked to people. So just do that. You got to talk to people.
Just doing it Renegade style?
Is that what Renegade did?
As a Renegade, like doing it like a Renegade, just going out there.
Oh, yeah. Just kind of improvising, getting to know people.
Yeah, running up, bumping into people, handshake. Oh, hey, you're here too.
Chasing people down, acting like you accidentally ran into them. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's sort of Renegade stuff. So,
yeah, and so I don't know how much I can speak about it specifically in Chrono, but we are in a good place and have at least a couple of angel investors lined up to chip in. And so then the next question is the whole world of like corporate structure. And if you have an investor coming in, that means that you have to like value your company and have shares. And so it's been a big learning process trying to figure out how to divvy up the product and keep creative control and like find investors that actually care about the game and don't just want to like make money off you and then dump you, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited because I think the people that we found to work with so far like are really involved in the card game industry and very genuine, and also have like a bunch of friends and resources in like the marketing world and the art world, which are like weaker spots for us. So it's very exciting.
They didn't get to that point by being isolated.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So they've got that network, those connections already in place. So
exactly.
And then the last one you had suggested was pay what you can.
I mean, that kind of ties into like Patreon and subscriptions. It's kind of the same vein. So I don't know how much we need to talk about it,
We put up a donation box at the Twin Portals live shows. You want to feed the players? Here, throw some money in there. That's about as far as I go with it.
Yeah, like it's not something that you do for like a steady income stream. No. It's, in a way, crowdfunding is kind of like that, but there's an expectation that you'll get something in return. So
yeah. But with crowdfunding, especially with like Kickstarter, so many different tiers. Like you choose your level of involvement, and your level of rewards for that. So
yeah.
Anyways, the next one on here was talking all about Chrono.
So
or what?
The crowdfunding part more, so we can kind of get into the weeds of that a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the things you had put down were how the budget is pieced together, successes and failures, producers, publishers, angels, definitions, experiences, creative control as currency, and then. License fees and platform fees.
Nah, I don't want to hear about that. Unity, quick aside, Unity has a bunch of...
What is Unity?
Unity is a game engine. You'll see a lot of indie games have like the Made in Unity pop-up because that's the pop-up that you have to include in your game when you're using the free or the indie dev versions of Unity.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because they give you a discounted price to let you use it for free. So
yeah. Same thing. I mean, MSAB and ARAC have acknowledgement requirements. So.
Yeah. There are a lot of tools out there that will let you basically make a whole game on them, as long as you're not selling like hundreds of thousands of copies. And then once you reach a certain threshold, then you have to start paying license fees. But in the world of game development specifically, there's actually all these tools available, like Fmod for audio, Unity, Unreal, Godot, Game Maker's Toolkit. That's not Game Maker's Toolkit, that's a YouTube channel. What's the name of
How much of these do you work with yourself?
Engines?
Yeah.
Unity is the only one that I have a lot of experience in. Okay. And I wouldn't say I have a lot. But I did, like, one of my COVID passion projects was trying to make games on my own.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Yeah. For, like, at least 3/4 of a year, maybe.
Animal Crossing only lasted so long in the day. You finished your stuff up real fast. So you had to fill up your day somehow.
Exactly. I'd always wanted to make a game.
Yeah.
And I had all these ideas. And so I did the whole thing of going down many YouTube rabbit holes and going through all the Unity tutorials on their website, and making a bunch of like beginner games, like, platformers and solitaire. And I made like 2048 and various things like that. Like some like 3D.
2048.
Yeah. That was actually like my proudest one. Like that one was interesting. And then I kind of petered out at like, I don't know, like Elden Ring came out or something. And I was like, I didn't do it for like a month. And then I was like, okay, this is too much to like get back into again. And so I did not until Chrono. And then having that experience and knowing how Unity works and what it does was actually really valuable, it turned out, because then I could actually talk about the engine with our professional developers who really knew what they were doing, and I could kind of navigate through it and
had a little bit of
the
language.
assets and the screens. Yeah, like I could interface with it.
Yeah, you weren't fluent, but you could converse.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. So that's the Unity aside. Anyway, crowdfunding, Chrono CCG. I would say there were like two of the biggest struggles, things to figure out between January and June 2024 were, number one, which I already touched on, building a community around the game. And number two, figuring out what to ask for and like how realistic that is and how to like chart that out.
How did the community building start? How did that go?
Well, we were really lucky with Chrono because, like I said, we were coming off of Legends of Runeterra, and the two other guys that I founded the game with, one was the owner and manager of one of the biggest Runeterra community websites.
Oh,
like,
nice.
If you think like untapped.gg, if you're familiar for Magic, like Mastering Runeterra is his website, and he had like 20, 30, he had a lot of users on the website, and so like he posted like, we're moving on to Chrono, everybody come check it out. And he already like knew a bunch of the pro players and Twitch streamers from Runeterra, so that brought attention and people to our project. The other founder was the like not the world champion, but the best player in North America of Runeterra.
Neat.
So he like had a lot of experience playing games and was kind of a celebrity in that regard, and was also a Twitch streamer, so he had his own following too.
I kind of remember you bringing that up back at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just got to kind of nerd out here. What was that like? So now you're just Matías.
It was really surreal.
I'm sorry to put it that way, but it's just this guy
that's how
I
it
know
felt.
from theater. And so now you're talking to the best NA Runeterra player and the guy who runs the biggest website that brings these people in.
Oh.
And you're just sort of hanging out talking to these people.
Yeah. And then our web developer was the other guy who runs the other biggest Runeterra website, Vivo. So like, yeah, it was weird.
So it's like 3 Runeterra heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And now I see why you said muscled in on the project.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering at first, but
well, it turns out they were also busy with their own stuff and like needed a project manager real bad.
Yeah.
So like I slotted in pretty nicely
worked out pretty good.
world.
Yeah.
No, but it was very weird. And I mean, like those guys, I had like been a follower of their podcasts and YouTube shows and stuff like before this, and it was like, well, now we're just hanging out every week.
Were you cool?
Was I cool?
Were you trying to be cool?
I was trying to be really cool.
Or were you nerding?
I'm still trying to be cool.
Or were you being geeky? Were you just being like nerding out? And I'm like,
no, none of that.
Okay.
I was bossing them around.
Yeah.
They needed to be bossed around.
Mm-hmm.
So that brought our community to the game, and then the work of it was showing what we were doing, right? So like right away we designed the whole game, like all the mechanics, all the cards. And then we got to work on a prototype, because one of the things you really need in Kickstarter if you're going to crowdfund anything is some kind of prototype. This is our vision. This is what we want. So I learned a lot about Tabletop Simulator and how to make things in Tabletop Simulator, how to make a JSON file with all the cards and add the arts and the framing and put it all together in Canva, using Dexterous as a website for templating cards, putting all that together, and then making a scripted Tabletop Simulator board where you can like click buttons to make things automate. And we like worked with a couple people on Fiverr to like help. They're like Tabletop Simulator experts on Fiverr that'll like script it all out for like $20. A lot of Fiverr is great, by the way, for like prototype stuff. Like you don't need it to be like super deep, but just enough to like be functional and show what you want to do.
I remember downloading Fiverr right after you had talked about that. Like, I'm gonna totally do that. But then it's an app on my phone now.
Yeah,
so
Fiverr and Upwork, as far as like finding people for like like pinch hitting different tasks. If you don't have the expertise, it's great.
Nice.
And then like AI was just starting to become more of a thing, so like being able to look stuff up.
You love AI.
I wouldn't say I love it.
You love AI. You're always posting AI.
I'm really into it, but that doesn't mean love. Like learning how to put all this stuff together and self-teach all these things was a lot easier with AI, being able to just like talk through it with this sounding board versus like Googling everything, or watching YouTube videos, which we did a lot of that too. But then it came time to like actually make the campaign page and figure out, like, we had a quote for putting the whole game together, and it was pretty high. And looking at our total like Discord followers and our email signups and everything, we were like, okay, I don't think we can get that much. Can we still make the game if we raise less? And then also a big thing on crowdfunding sites, especially Kickstarter, is if you can say that your project was like fully funded in 24 hours, you see a lot of pages on Kickstarter that do that. They're like, wow, we're so popular. There's a lot of gaming of the system that happens on Kickstarter, and shockingly.
Yeah.
And so like that'll bump your project, like the front of the algorithm, the homepage, that kind of thing. Like as people search for games, it'll be like right there. If it's like 100,000% funded or whatever, if you set your funding goal low and show that you're like super extra funded, that drives more clicks to your page. So you can actually raise more, even though your goal was lower. And so it's this like balancing act on crowdfunding of like figuring out how much you actually need to do your project, figuring out how much you can ask for to drive engagement higher, without like shooting yourself in the foot if you don't raise enough, but then you're still committed to getting the project done. It's very fraught. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's called under promise, over deliver.
What?
That's what you got to do that's what I meant.
Ideally,
getting to to game the algorithm, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand all the moving pieces and all the different levers you have to pull on at different amounts of strength and stuff like that. And then you throw all of the emotion that you put into, if we can just get this dollar value, then we'll be able to add these things, and that's going to make this part go way better. Yeah. I've dealt with that since we started getting grant money.
Yeah, that's not too different.
Everything you
have your goal.
Every grant has been building on the last one. So
anyway, we set it like to like the minimum amount where we could like still get the game going and make like the most unpolished game, but still get it done.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, if we can get this amount, then we can start to raise money from that product. And that's what we've been doing since then. So
nice.
We found some amazing developers too, who are willing to work for ownership and that, and like, what the money that we have available basically. Yeah. So that's been huge too.
How's that?
The ownership discussion?
Getting work for ownership, like a percentage.
Well, I mean, that's basically what I'm doing. Like I haven't made a cent on the game, but like we split it 3 ways after we've crowdfunded it. Mm-hmm. So I starting from like 33% ownership, now that we've like each given up like portions of that to the rest of the team. So
everyone's going down to like 30%, 28%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So everybody on our team has some ownership of the game, which I think is really valuable. Like, it means that everyone's invested. Yeah, literally.
It's like, that's how you make people care. That was the whole point of Office Space.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, if you make more money, I don't get any more money.
Right.
But if everyone's got some small incentive to make the game better instead of just my paycheck comes.
Yeah, right.
And
we also only brought in people that gave a damn about card games, which is big too. Like everybody has this dream and now we're all like making it together.
Yeah, so. It helps when you don't have to add passion.
Yeah,
when the passion's already there.
So, there was a note about creative control, and
I saw that creative control is currency.
Yeah. We're still navigating that because like right now it started out like there were the 3 of us, and like if as long as 2 of us agreed on something, then we'd have a majority decision making thing on it. You know
who does that the same way, or did? The guys for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
Yep, the same thing. It was Glenn and Charlie and Rob. They would get together in the editing room, and it was majority rules for a joke.
Nice.
If somebody had something that they really felt strongly about, they just had to convince somebody else. So yeah, 2 out of 3.
Yeah, well, so that's changed now that we're fundraising, right? So we have to like give more ownership to investors.
Boo.
So now if we want to have creative control, all 3 of us need to agree. The dynamic has changed.
Oh.
Luckily, that's basically how it was pre-Kickstarter too, so it's not like that big of a stretch.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
without going into any drama or anything, how often does it come up that there's a sticking point that you can't get 100% like unanimous consent?
Fairly often. I mean, we each have our roles, so like we're often just kind of like trusting each other to do our thing.
Yeah. Stay in your own lane.
Yeah, but like when there's ever like big steering decisions, there's always some discussion.
Yeah.
And some like devil's advocating and just talking through it.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And then you also you said platform license fees and priorities, and then you waved it off when we covered it in the recap just now, but I don't know anything about it, so give me a couple sentences on what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, it's all public information, like what different services charge. So like if you want to, like licensing different plugins or tools, like we just subscribed to a tool that does like, what's the when you modulate your voice, what's that called? Like T-Pain. Auto-tune. Auto-tuning. Yeah, there's this tool called Antares that's like the #1 industry standard for auto-tune voice.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of robot characters in our game, so we wanted to like make synthetic voices for some of them. So like that's a fee, or like licensing art from like art packs or sound packs or the hosting fees, like publishing a game on Steam takes a cut, Epic takes a cut, Google and Apple take a cut.
So for asset stuff, since that's something we can talk about, how much do you look at things like the Humble Bundle packs and things like that? Are those things useful for your sort of product?
Yeah, I look at all of them.
I meant as for Chrono, as it applies. So.
Yes, I think they're great. It's often a lot of like weeding through it, and trying to like find the 3 good things in the pack of like 500.
Yeah.
Assets. Yeah. So like in that regard, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's a question of like figuring out whether it's worth spending a little money or a lot of money or just going free.
I have used Humble Bundle, same thing. I primarily look for audio assets right now. That's my big thing. So I just kind of look for Ovani Sound, for example, had a really good one not that long ago. Basically because my stuff has been audio focused for so long, and now with a little bit of video stuff, I kind of look at the graphical packs now too. But those audio packs, if you get ones that are organized well, that makes it worth the $20 right
I
off
totally
the
agree.
bat. 100%. Like the sounds are decent quality most of the time. So, I mean, you'll get the computer generated packs occasionally where everything sounds like some guy spent
like a MIDI file.
Like he spent his Sunday afternoon producing these things, and good for him. He got it done. But it's not terribly useful for me in my applications. But some of them really hit well, and that might be my favorite loot box right now. Is just going on Humble, going to no longer games anymore, but now the software bundles, first thing I'll look at, and look for the new sound one. It's like, $20, $25, I get 1,000 sounds.
I've done most of the sound ones too. Like that's been my big thing too. I'm really waiting for one that has good like particle effects on Unity right now. We really need, that's like what we're missing in Chrono is like cool, flashy, glittering effects and stuff.
Gotcha.
So like someday, they have lots of like 3D asset packs, but
there are some other websites that do similar things as Humble Bundle, but for just like DaVinci Resolve assets.
Sure.
So it'll be all sorts of overlays or ways that graphics can come up or different filters or things like that I'll just drop right in. And some of them look fantastic. I was pointing them out to my instructor. I said, this is a $90 pack that's documentary stuff. And it's just all sorts of documentary looking text graphics, things you can adjust, add into the things. And I'm like, I just drooled. I didn't have the money right there, but it's definitely like I put it in my shopping cart and I added it to my email list so that I can get the emails that say, hey, you got something in your shopping cart. And hopefully later on they'll send me a 10% coupon for it or something like that. And I'll feel like I gamed the system, So I love those types of packs. That's one of my favorite things to look for. That's rummaging for me.
Yeah.
That's rummage sailing. That's finding something on a deep discount that I can end up using for a long time. Anyways, anything else you want to talk about your Chrono experience?
Those are kind of the big ones I wanted to touch on. Just the big foibles of a crowdfunding campaign and the community side of it. Yeah. There's a lot of little pieces. I'd love to talk more about it in detail with anybody who's interested. So hop on our Discord and we can nerd out together.
Twin Portals. That funding has been interesting. I've talked about it a lot, though, and I feel like I'm repeating myself. I look at crowdfunding stuff, and that looks incredibly daunting. Like, it looks like you need a team of people to get something like that together.
It depends, though, because like there are like small crowdfunding campaigns where it's like the goal is $1,000, $3,000, and those are fairly successful. And also, Kickstarter has a lot of programs like seasonally where they'll be like, it's like, painting month, and anybody who wants to do like a painting crowdfunding campaign will be like promoted on our front page. And so there's some stuff like that.
All right. For grants, I want to say, if you're in an area where grants are available, start writing, start doing it. That's the thing is I've had so many people come up to me and talk to me and say, oh, hey, I've got this idea. This is what I've been working on. This is the thing. I just feel like I need a little bit of money. I heard you've done stuff with grants. I go, absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Here's my card. Yeah. Get some ideas together and then email me and we'll figure it out when it's the cycle and for the next grants coming up, all that stuff. And I never hear back ever. I've never gotten anybody. I've had this conversation a dozen times now, and I've given people my card and my personal information. I've said, I'd love to help you out with this.
So you think it's folks that, they just like don't.
I think people don't take the first step.
They get diverted. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not throwing shade. I get distracted walking up the steps by something shiny. I understand that. But just having the willingness to put pen to paper, to sketch out a few ideas and let it build from there. That's my biggest grant piece of advice is start writing something down, download the application and look at it and figure out what questions they're going to ask you and then start answering those questions for yourself in your head. Yeah. And that's how you start your project. I mean, to get an arts grant, you have to be an artist to begin with. So you have to have some experience doing it. So you've already got that. Otherwise, you're not going to get it because they're not going to give public money to somebody who's just starting out unless the grant is specifically designed for that. Mm-hmm. Even my first grant, the Artist Access grants, I needed to have, some sort of showcase. This is
body of work.
Yeah, this is what I've done. And in my case, it was a lot of years of experience on stage and backstage and things like that, working with tech stuff. So, But honestly, you got to start making that motion. you might not ever submit the application. And if you do submit the application, there's a pretty good chance you might not get the money. And all of that hurts. That is an emotional cost. I agree. It sucks. Rejection sucks hard. But you can always just go again, and no one's ever going to know. So you just roll with it again until you get it.
So how do we help people cross this hurdle? Like, what is the...
I don't. Somebody has to be willing to jump. That's my thing. That's why I have the conversation. I tell people that there's $1,000, $4,000, 100 yards down that way. All they have to do is run and jump. And if they jump the first hurdle, I'll tell them how to make the next 9 hurdles easier to jump.
Well, so what's the little mini hurdle before the first hurdle? Is it like just having a clear idea of what you want? I mean, I feel like that's often what it is. Like, you can't write about where you're going if you don't have something specific to ask for.
Well, the people who come up to me usually have something. They say, we're looking for rent assistance for rehearsal space or something like that. Or I've been making my own graphic comic for a while, and I'd like to take something to print. So they have ideas, and instantly, like, my excitement perks up for them. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love it. Let's take a look at the grant cycles. Here's my card. As soon as you get something down, like, let me know. Email me. Just shoot me an email whenever you want. It can be anything. Oh, hey, I remember that I got this card from you. And we'll start the conversation there. Yeah. But it never goes after that. Like, it never continues.
So you have the idea. You know specifically what you want. The next step that someone could take would be maybe like figuring out what it would cost to make real. And then from there, you can kind of like start to sketch out the rest of like who you are and why you're doing it and all the other grant application things. But if you know like what your ask is,
you have an idea what you want. You have your passion project.
Yeah.
And then you download the application. Right. You go to ARAC or MSAB or whatever regional arts board you're working under. You download the application. You figure out which one's right for you. You go through the list of restrictions. You cannot use this money. You can use it to present art. You can use it to travel to a place to present art inside your county. You can use it to pay others. You can use it to pay for rental. You can use it to pay for subscription services that are required for necessity. You can use it to pay for equipment. You can't use it to build an addition on your house. You can't use it for religious reasons. You can't do
political
anything. Stuff like that. These are sort of the typical things. Like, and if somebody's doing something for art, usually they're way, way, way in the clear on most of this stuff. Yeah. So there are a few smaller ones that you can go, all right, well, we just have to figure out a way to massage what you're doing so that it fits this. And that's not it's not usually a hard thing to do. You know, people are usually willing to make that adjustment if it means they'll be eligible then for a significant portion of money that can then go immediately to their art. Like, to tell a person, you can practice your art, but you don't have to drain your personal funds in order to do it.
Yeah.
That is great. That changed everything. You know, it gives you the opportunity to then continue to go a little bit more forward. So
to become more professional too. Like, yeah.
It's all skill building. It's portfolio building. Portfolio building is one of the things that MSAB allows their grants for. So we could take this, if I had put it in the grant, I can't now. We could take this and find a way to use it for portfolio building, like get professional portfolio work done with some of the stuff we've done. I've never asked for that money for that. So,
but you've been able to take the money that you earned and then become semi-professional with it in other ways.
Yeah.
Which is just a perk of this kind of grant stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that's what I say. I'd say get the application, figure out your idea, get the application, figure out the questions. My practical thing, like my folksy charm type grant thing that I always did when I was writing grants, I printed out the application, which I know is a luxury now, having a printer, and stapled it and kept it in my pocket with a pen so that whenever I was thinking about it at work or wherever I was, I could open it up, read the exact wording for the question, and then consider it and write down a different take on it. And
I love it.
I just doodled and brainstormed and scratched all over that thing. And I had 3 of them by the time I started working on the grant. I had 3 different copies of this thing with all these different notes. So then I'm just putting things together, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, stuff like that. So
nice.
That's always be working on it. Have a piece of paper around so that you can keep thinking about it, and then you can record your notes on it. Because I lose the thoughts. Like, if I have a great angle for how to answer a question, if I don't write it down, I will forget it within 30 minutes.
This is like another huge rabbit hole that I could go down. Is just like personal knowledge management. and like finding a system that works for you to
I'm unfamiliar.
Bollocks. Like for me, I use Obsidian MD. I used to use a bunch of Google Docs. I used to use paper notes. But yeah, I think I agree that it's so important to have a system that works for you, where you can kind of like keep all your ideas flowing, and not lose them to the greatest extent possible. It always happens sometimes, but filing cabinet. Yeah,
I want to get better at Obsidian. You've pointed out a few times. I've downloaded it on a few different. Like I got it on that computer over there. I think I got it down on my PC. I've just never taken the time to learn it, get organized with it. I should watch a YouTube video on it.
There are tons. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. One of my coworkers actually just asked me to like teach him about it too. And I'm like, are you sure you want this? Because it's like...
What's the downside?
Well, there's a lot of upsides to it. The downsides are that it doesn't do much at like first shake. You have to like set it up the way you want it and like look at the plugins and figure out what kind of plugins you want.
There are plugins?
There are so many plugins.
All right, I'm way behind.
Yeah, there's lots.
I'm just using base with maybe a different color scheme.
And that's okay. Like really, that's all you need to start with. The main thing is like figuring out like a file structure that works for you.
I remember the giant web of interconnecting things.
Yeah, I love that. It's so cool.
Can you describe it in like 2 sentences? Because I can't.
Sure. Obsidian MD is basically like a personal wiki, and every page there's a map view where every page has its own dot, and it links them all. Like as you have like your hyperlinks, your blue wiki links that connect page to page.
Yeah, you do like a double bracket, and then it creates a thing, and then you can make that double bracket happen in a different document. So I could put like 3 ogres. We ran into 3 ogres, and I bracket that, and then the next episode, I could come back. Do the same thing, bracket 3 ogres. Now, if I click on 3 ogres, it's going to take me to that map view, and it's going to show me the episodes that 3 ogres popped up.
Exactly. It's pretty cool for that. And it even has like tools baked in where you can kind of like quickly, like you have some bracket that's been used on one page, you can like have it go to all your other pages and like add hyperlinks to that same thing. It's very cool.
I might get like a Tangeray and tonic and just go deep dive on Obsidian beginner videos tonight.
If our channel ever has like Patreon content or whatever, like the tequila and like deep technical nerdery content that is just like sloppier and sloppier as the evening goes on, I'm here for it.
Yeah. We had a thing on marketing and advertising. We put that in there too, which I don't know why.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too when I saw it. I was like, I don't know if we really want to talk about that too much.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's...
I would say it would behoove you to know somebody who likes marketing and is good at it.
Do that. Do what he said.
If you don't want to go down that road yourself, because it's a whole world. It's like any project could use like a full-time marketer if you really want to like make it grow. It's a question of like how much you want to invest and how much you want to make something grow, right?
Oh man.
Like, and there are a lot of resources out there. Okay, my one reference that I will link that I'll share for people is there's a really awesome GDC talk from a couple of years ago by one of the executives of Armor Games about how to market an indie game as like a solo developer. And it applies to like any creative project. It's just like a really good way to take a project and develop like a monthly, weekly schedule for like sharing stuff and building a community around it. I don't know. It's a really insightful and like practical method to marketing a product or a project.
I can't imagine that thing exists. A practical way to market a project.
Yeah, well, it's just like a bunch of tools within the YouTube video.
Oh, I understand. I just so bad at it. I wish. That was the thing I wish. Not that I was good at marketing, that I had the drive to be good at marketing. I don't want to market almost ever. I'm terrible at it. I think I'm sure it's a self-esteem thing, 100%.
Well, it's also a time thing. It's just like the more energy you commit to marketing, the more of a community you have to manage then. So it's kind of like a hungry dragon that keeps getting hungrier the more gold you give it, the
weird thing is that I should love analytics. I should love stats and trends and things like that, and I like looking at the lines, but for some reason, like the idea of trying to massage something to make one thing go up, and just the whole thing feels like ick to me, and it shouldn't, because it's basically the job.
Well, I think it's a little icky, right? Because there's a question of like doing things strictly to build engagement versus doing things because you care about it.
Yeah,
they're not always the same thing. So yeah,
I don't know.
I get that, especially as artists, we're like we just want to like be truthful. So
yeah,
marketing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I would say that in our personal spheres, or just the people we know, I'm one of the first people who will say something sucks if it sucks.
That's a good skill.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't go out to hurt. I try to give constructive criticism, but I'm also not afraid to say, well, that wasn't great.
Right.
You know? And so it kind of makes things awkward then, because I critique my own work so hard. Like, I then think they're going to see how off that lighting was in that shot or something like that. They'll look with the same eyes and the same ear and hear with the same ears as me and judge the product the same way I judge the product. And I can't make the product as good as I want it to be because I don't have the time or technical skills. So I put a product out there that I'm not necessarily happy with.
Right.
And then do I want to market that? Even though other people may love the product and think it's great, but my own head tells me, all right, that was like a C+.
Yeah. One of the mantras of our office in my engineering job that I have to keep repeating to myself and my coworkers is done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Done is better than perfect.
Great is the enemy of good.
Yes.
Oh, list of resources. We'll add those. One resource for grants seekers in Minnesota, Springboard for the Arts. I'll have a link in the description. Check it out. They're a Minnesota nonprofit that is basically all about telling you about all the grants that there are available in Minnesota. They're kind of the hub for grants in Minnesota is what I would say, because they have links to not only the Minnesota State Arts Board, but also all the regional arts councils, also small descriptions of what kind of grants have recently been offered, how much money they are, roughly what time of year they come up. And then sort of the really big specialty artistic grants are also linked there too, like the McKnight Foundation, things like that. Those real big, scary, heavy hitters.
Nice. I need to go there and check it out.
Yeah, that's a good one. And plug in the future. We got stuff coming up.
Yeah. So our next episode, should we talk about that? Little preview?
That's not all the way set, but yeah, the plan is...
Well, we're going to have a little episode starring myself and a couple faces that you might recognize from past Twin Portals content. We're hoping to talk about the interface of geekdom.
Interface.
The interface of what?
Sound like you've been doing some computer programming lately.
We're going to talk about being a parent and raising nerdy kids and how to, like, there's just like what works and what doesn't and what feels good and what doesn't, and fun ways to engage kids with these hobbies and passions that we have. Every parent learns different techniques, and each kid is different and has things that work and don't. Like day to day, kids are these strange, immutable, very mutable fey creatures that change every day. So that's what we're hoping to dig into.
Yeah. That's right now the plan. We're going to try to get some more folks in here. I don't have any kids. It's pretty awesome. So I want to get some people in here who do, because I don't think I would have as much to contribute except to say,
Scott's plan is to be like the Mystery Science Theater robots in the audience.
I'm gonna be over there in the corner,
yeah,
happily sitting on that giant yoga ball and just sipping on some Diet Coke and
just Diet Coke.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. Again, it's going to be a completely different thing. This is going to change again if this all happens. Like, I think there might be a table here. I don't know what's going to happen. So the setup will look completely different. It could also just be the two of us. I have no idea. Yeah. So, but the plan is talking being a parent and how that affects your relationship with arts and how it affects your relationship with gaming and, you know, things you've done to make those adjustments in your life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to make that adjustment. So I think it's great that you guys want to talk about it.
It's really interesting world.
Interesting is a good word for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a learning process constantly. So,
oh, yeah. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's just life. Life is a learning process constantly. You know, it's just like taking care of somebody.
We got an upcoming appearance, it sounds like. ExcaliburCon.
Yeah.
ExcaliburCon's happening in Duluth, August 16th and 17th is what I wrote down.
At the deck.
And... yeah, so check out just search ExcaliburCon, you'll be able to find it. I think we're doing our panel on Sunday.
Yes.
We're doing a panel on Twin Portals, 45-minute panel, probably 30 minutes of us talking, 15 a Q&A, I think is what we're shooting for.
Yep, talking about some of the stuff we talked about today and just digging into like things that are applicable, meaningful for artists and nerds who want to make stuff.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of broader focused, but at the same, more general.
And kind of like narrowing it on like actual play.
Yeah. How we've done it, things that we've come up with. If you have anything you want us to touch on, let us know. Add it to the comments. We can talk about it here. You can meet us in person there.
Or, yell at us in the audience.
Once the schedule's finalized, I'll post it on here. Mm-hmm. So we get all that. I'll probably be doing another panel, grant writing. I'll have that information around too. So we'll see when that happens. I got to start working on that too.
Yeah.
I got my grant panel one done from last year, so I just need to modify it. I got to figure out the tone a little bit, because the last one I did was very me heavy. I was trying to indicate how average I am, and it didn't come off that well. Like, I just kept saying, look, I don't have any grant writing, like, professional experience. I'm not an English major or anything like that. I take x-rays, and I got these arts grants. You can too. And so I tried to bring myself down in order to give everyone else motivation to go do it. Again, same thing happened. I never really heard back. I had people saying, oh, I really want the slides from that thing. And I gave them to them, and then never heard back about any work on it. So
sometimes it's planting seeds, and then things don't materialize right away.
So we'll be doing that on the 17th. I'm not going to be in a good, I'm going to be rough, because Bacon Fest is the day before.
Yeah.
It's Bacon and Chocolate Fest. I'll get into more on that later. It's not an official Twin Portals activity.
I'll be paneling too, I think, and a separate panel talking about game development with some other local game designers and,
nice.
and makers.
Sweet.
So it'll be fun. And then also the Saturday night of the convention, I'll be playing a game with some local celebrities and some voice talent.
Nice.
On stage, kind of Twin Portals style. Just making up something really fun.
I may have to come check that out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I want to watch somebody else try to do it.
Right.
Try to put up a D&D show on stage.
I know. I feel so lost without you, Scott, already.
I'm going to be in the back just like waiting for train wrecks.
Yeah.
It's going to be me.
Yeah.
You want to see if there's a kid in me still?
Uh-huh.
It's not that I want everything to be the one act play that goes wrong. It's just that it's fun.
Yeah. No, we're here to entertain.
We'll see
so if
how
everything does go wrong and you're laughing your butt off, mission accomplished.
Yeah, right.
The way I see it.
I did too much theater, and I did way too much theater from the booth. So I'm way more familiar with watching theater from the back. Like I can't sit anywhere else in the theater. I want to be back by the booth. I want to be in the far back corner. Like, just get me away. And then a live show. We've got an upcoming live show. We're still putting pieces together on that. So that has been a struggle bus trying to get all those things lined up. So
yeah,
we'll get it done when we can.
Busy people.
I'm really hoping for September, October, somewhere in that area, and then another one in January, February. So best I got for you right now is September, October, January, February. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have some more, and we won't have to be on an episode. I'll probably just post it into the Discord.
Sure.
So anyways, anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's our time.